everyone, welcome to our health surgery, the place to come with all your health related questions. So just our usual kind of surgery style, it's an opportunity just to check in, see how you're traveling with your case studies. If you've got any questions either about your case study or about any of the training materials, this is a place to bring them. So can I just say it's great to see you here, Diana. I know that you have not been having a great day today. So the fact that you're here, I'm just delighted to see you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Does anybody have any burning questions or anything that they want to ask me? Alison, you're unmuted, so I'm taking it you've got something to go, and Shayla's nodding her head. It looks like she's getting our list up on the screen. So
no, I haven't got anything. No.
Oh, you haven't. Okay,
no.
that's it's probably just because we were chatting that you were unmuted. I thought you'd unmuted yourself, ready to go. So Shayla, do you want to fire away?
Yes, you are absolutely right. I'm pulling up a list.
I can see your eyes moving across the screen.
Okay, so first question. I got a little discombobulated by the pain score sheet. I might have done it to myself. So what is the difference between the pain score off medication versus just the general discomfort pain score? Because I've been just rating them the same.
Okay, so you don't need to use that. It's not always appropriate or relevant. So say, for example, you knew a little bit about the animal's history and you were working with a dog who had hip dysplasia and was on pain medication for their hip dysplasia. Because you know that they've maybe only been on that a couple of weeks, you could say to them, what's your pain score today whilst you're on your medication? And they're going to give you a pain score out of 10. So say it's a 3. And then you're checking in with your effective questions. Is that kind of average for every day, or are you having a good day or a bad day today? And they likely to say, no, that's kind of average. 3 out of 10 is my general discomfort or pain level on a day-to-day basis. So, oh, thanks very much. Can you remember what your pain scores were like before you were on the medication that you just started last week? And they might say, oh my goodness, they were an 8 out of 10. So then you're able to present to the guardian the difference that the animal's feeling now that they're on medication compared to when they weren't. Or it might be, and I had this with my own dog, that when the vet changed her medication, I wasn't sure that it was doing anything. And so when I asked her to score her pain levels, there was no difference from before medication and after. So I was able to go straight back to the vet and say, I don't think this is working. And the vet was actually very, very good. And the vet said you should have been able to see an instantaneous difference in her mobility. And I said, I definitely have not. And she said, right, we need to switch it because it should have. So there's another way that it might be that there's no difference. So the medication needs to be looked at again. Or it might be that, I don't think I've seen this, but as another permeation, but it could be that the pain scores are worse because the medication just isn't working. And there's now, 3 weeks on, the pain's got worse because there's been no intervention that's been supportive. I don't think I've actually had that one, but that is a possible permeation as well. Does that clarify that for you, Shayla? Now, if the animal's not on medication, you can't use that question. If the animal is on medication but you don't know, then you just don't go fishing for something that's not there. It's just if you happen to know that they're on medication, you could bring that in as an extra little check.
Okay. And then so about the physical emotional ratio percentages scaling. Were you intending, and I suppose I could have, like you said, just made it however I felt, I tweaked it myself then, but I'm a little confused about the physical emotional ratio. Is that intending to be as the symptoms that we described for that body part as they're showing up in those ratios, or the origin of what we're describing, where it comes from?
Oh, sorry. Right. Yes. So you're really looking to get to the origin of the problem. So is this a physical issue? So say, for example, hip dysplasia, say that's a mechanical issue in the body. The joint socket doesn't do what the joint socket's meant to do. It's a mechanical issue. So that could show up at 100% physical, or it might show up at 90% physical, but 10% is emotional because there's stuff tied in that area, or they're left feeling sad that they can't do the things that they used to be able to do. So we're really looking for the emotion, sorry, the origin of the symptom, because as an energy practitioner, and not everybody believes this, but as an energy practitioner, what we in the energy world understand is that most conditions come from an emotional reason. So somebody, for example, that's never been able to speak their truth their whole life is probably going to be plagued with sore throats, laryngitis, tonsillitis, anything around the throat where they can't express who they are. They can't be their true self. It's not safe for them to be seen as their true selves. So when an animal or a person has, you know, consistent throat issues, it might be that actually the ability to communicate who they are at a soul level has been so thwarted over time that they just can't do that, and then that's showing up in that physical way. In the same way as grief, you know, people you know, they say that you can die of a broken heart, and you can, and really what that is unresolved grief. That's just the grief that's never been processed, and then it impacts physically on the heart, and that's what dying of a broken heart is. So the ratio scores are just to give you an idea, or help the guardian get an idea of, you know, if this has got a high emotional ratio, then some healing work, some energy work, some other kind of support in place there would actually help on the physical level as well.
Okay. I was working with a dog that had huge separation anxiety, and the parts that came up were all from what I was getting, uh, energetic and emotional. And so the way I was scoring it, and I just rate there, a little bit of the percentage came up for the body because it showed up as the anxious symptoms,
Yep.
and I confused guardian, so I had to clarify with what I understood it to be. So that's very helpful. That makes
Yes.
sense.
And so with something like separation anxiety, that is fundamentally an emotional issue because it's fear-based. It's absolutely fear-based. And whilst there may be genuine physical symptoms then start showing up in the body, so there might be anxiety, so there's a knotted stomach. Now their digestion isn't working properly. They might be injuring themselves because they're scraping at the walls or trying to eat through the floorboards to get out. You know, whatever the scenarios are, there might be genuine physical conditions or ailments, but it actually comes from an emotional origin. So if we know that, we can work on the emotion, which then in turn should eradicate the physical symptoms.
Mm, okay. Thank you.
Can I just check this? And this is not to, I'm not checking. So Shayla, don't misread what I'm saying here. I want to make sure, did I make that clear enough in the video? Were other people confused by that too?
Yeah, I think it probably is just me because the way my brain
And I'm
is.
not trying to make it a Shayla issue. That's why I'm saying don't read too much into what I'm asking. I just need to make sure that it's clear enough, because if it's not, I want to make it clearer if it's not clear enough.
I think the
So
video was clear. It just turned out that what I was working with was could have been here or there, and it was just
yes.
too whimsical. And so I was having trouble with, I think I ended up confusing myself. But
And
your
that's
video
easy
was
done. It's the first
straightforward.
time. It's the first
Yeah.
time you've worked. It's the first time you've worked with them. But I do invite you, all of you, you know, if there's anything that doesn't feel clear, you know, I want to know, because I want to make it clear for you. So that's always, you know, it's great that we've got these classes, these surgeries that you can bring them to. But in an ideal world, I want to have absolutely nailed it for you in each of those videos, that you have no questions when you come here. You know, that's my big dream for how I'd love to see this go. So please know that if something doesn't feel clear or you're not sure, not only bring it here for me, but let me know. And if everybody's feeling the same, then I need to go back and look at and see if there's a different way that I can teach the point. So it's always good to know from my end as well.
Mm.
Okay, you've got something else on your list.
Yes. So as I've clarified for the Guardian, because I only found out that I was confused after Guardian told me I was not clear, and then I was able to clarify. And in clarifying, I kind of noticed there was extra information that clicked for me. And I haven't gotten feedback on some things. I'm wondering if I should add that stuff to the submission for you, or
Please do.
leave
Yes.
what I. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please do. I came across a video a couple of weeks ago, and I was putting all the health stuff because I'm upgrading everything that I've done in the past and doing new videos and things. So I was looking at all the videos a few weeks back. I've been looking at them for weeks and weeks, and there was a video where I talked about showing your working. And I watched a video, and I sometimes forget what I've done. You know, it's a 3-minute video that I did 5 years ago. I'm not going to remember that. You know, it's done, so it's ticked to my box. It's there for the students to see. So when I watched the video, I was like, oh, I totally forgot that I made that suggestion. Well, I add it into these trainer videos, and I decided not to. So I'm going to share it with you now. And and the video was basically show me your working. Now, I know that all schools are different, but here in the UK, we are always told when we're doing maths or arithmetic that we show our working on our exam paper, because even if we get the wrong answer, if the examiner can see your working and realize that you've dropped a 1 or you've accidentally added a 2 in instead of a 3, they can see that your formula for getting the answer was absolutely correct. You just misadded or mis-subtracted or misdivided and therefore got the wrong answer. So you would still get points awarded for your working. And that's what the video was about. And it was saying, show me your working for how you reach the conclusions that you reach around the health conditions. And that helps me guide you.
Okay.
So yeah, put it all in. Put it all. You don't need to give it all to your client, but definitely give it all to me.
Okay. Last one, and I'm gonna cork it and make sure no one else has anything going on. The phrase "right eye," that's an organ, but I didn't know what else to say. Right.
What else can you say? What else can you say? Really, it is.
Okay.
It's a tricky thing. The right orbital area, like really, come on, it's the friggin' eye. We do need to be sensible with this. So I just let me be clear. And Norma, I'm just trusting that you're going to watch this on the replay. And Diana, if you're up for giving any feedback, your feedback's more than welcome. So what I noticed maybe about 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago, I noticed that even though the training is as I've outlined it, you know, our sorry, I can't think of the word. Our role as animal communicators is to be the voice for the animals, is to dig down on the symptoms. Our job, absolutely, in order to stay out of vetland, is we do not diagnose, we do not infer medical conditions, and we don't name organs. So that was my guidance that I got from working with vets over the years. So that's what I've always taught. But I noticed about 4 years ago that students' case studies were really quite like overly creative and actually not helpful. And I said to the coaches, because I had a coaching team at that time, and I said to them, that's not diagnosing. And the coaches were so worried that they were not being tight enough on the not diagnosing, that they were jumping on just about every single thing somebody mentioned. And I'm looking at students' work and thinking, this is not helpful. And then I had a call with Diana, and I haven't asked if it's okay for me to share this, Diana, so I'm trusting that it is. But Diana was doing an assessment for a student a couple of intakes ago. And she said she ended up saying to the student, will you just tell me what bit's sore? Like, I'm a vet, I'm okay with that. Just tell me the bit that hurts. And the student said, "Oh, she said, I don't want to breach the body scanning rules." And Diana was great and just said, "Just tell me." And as soon as the student said, "It's here and this is what happens," Diana knew exactly what she needed to do. I think it was her horse. She knew exactly what she needed to do for that horse. And so the conversation that Diana and I had was, actually, that was unhelpful to the guardian because the student was just pussyfooting around it so much. So I had a call with a class like this with the students, and we talked about it, and the coaches as well. But the coaches, I think, were just really worried that they were worried that no coach, and I appreciate this about the coaches I've worked with over the years, no coach wanted it on their watch that somebody had come through my program and was working in Vetland. So that was their commitment to me and how I teach. And what I noticed over the years is that the boundaries for what we share and how we share just got smaller and smaller and narrower and narrower and narrower until we were in a place where it was actually very difficult to share any body scanning information. So yeah, if it's the eye, it's the eye. Don't get creative about the eye, the ear. It's like I was drawn to the right ear, or remember as well, we're always putting it on the animal. So it's he drew me to the right ear, or he showed me his right eye. So as long as we're not saying, I felt there was congestion in the left ear and it's all blocked and he's got ringing sounds in there. He clearly has tinnitus. You need to go and get that sorted. That is so very different from saying he drew me to the left ear and I felt a real build-up of pressure. I was hearing this ringing kind of sound. Don't know what that is, but the closest thing I could probably describe it is what tinnitus would probably sound like, because that's what my uncle's got, and he talks about sound in his ear. And then you're just sharing it factually. You're just sharing it factually. Does that help answer that for you?
Yes, I'm definitely overthinking it and trying to be extra.
Yeah, it's an easy one to overthink, but as I said before, what I was really seeing over the last few years in particular is that overthinking was just making the landscape in which we could have these honest conversations about what was coming up and I don't want to say medical because it's not medical, it's on the physical or the emotional realm, and that's our areas of expertise. That's where we're the experts. So let us shine there. So good question. Good question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good. So the training is doing just about what it's meant to be doing. Good stuff. So I know that you've got your Health One organised, Shayla, onboarding tomorrow, I think you said. Alison, yours is in. I've done yours already. Adele, you've got behaviour to come in, and Diana, you're doing nothing. And Norma, if you're watching on the replay, I've got yours in as well. So Diana, you're just resting, taking care of your good self. That's all I expect from you. Is there anything you want to ask or share or need support from us with, Diana, just while you're here? Oh, if you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm a bit better than I was earlier. I think I've perhaps just overdone it a bit, maybe. I don't know. Going back to what you're saying about not diagnosing, though, it does depend as well on what sort of vet level you're dealing with. Because somebody like me who's into homeopathy, what are really important are what we call modalities and sensations. You know, what makes it better? What makes it worse? You know, and how does it feel to an animal? You know, have you got a tingling type of sensation? Does it feel like nerve pain? Because that would be no use to a conventional vet, really, because they're just going pain. But a homeopathic one, it's the difference between a really good remedy and a not really good one.
And I love that you've brought that in, because these are the questions that are built into the body scanning template. You know, what makes it worse? What makes it better? You'll drilled in on the symptoms. And in my experience of doing this work for 20 odd years now, The only vets that have ever been interested in my body scanning work are holistic vets.
Yeah.
I've never
because they just
had
don't know.
a conventional vet. I've had 2 conventional vets that have said to the client, I don't know what it is you're doing with this. Well, one was a dog and one was a cat. I don't know what it is you're doing with this dog, but just keep doing it, because according to his bloods, he should not be able to stand. And
Yeah.
she said to her, I keep telling you, it's Sarah Jane, and the work that she's doing. Didn't want to know, wasn't interested.
Nope.
Same as the cat, not interested at all. Even though the clients diligently took the, and I had another dog in Singapore actually, where that was actually a really dangerous case. The dog had stopped eating, had been in for surgery, and they wanted to keep her in for 2 weeks. I can't remember what the surgery was now. But she was being kept in for 2 weeks, and she'd stopped eating. And the family that had her, this dog wanted for nothing. She wanted for nothing. And they had already checked that she wasn't going to be on her own, and that she was going to have company, and that was all yes, yes, yes. So like, right, okay, we'll leave her. And then she stopped eating, and they asked me to communicate with her. I think this is maybe 3 days post-op, and she was just miserable, so miserable. And she said that she was all alone. And I'm thinking, well, that can't be right, because I know that the family checked that she wasn't going to be on her own. So she told me that she was all on her own, but it was the smells. Now, this dog, I'd worked with this dog on and off for years. The first time they came to me, a little dog that was allergic to grass. Like, how horrific. Allergic to grass, or her skin was a mess. Like, it just, and she hated she had special bathing stuff from the vet, and she hated it. And I remember thinking, I'm not a vet. I don't know what to suggest here. I have skin things, and I don't use conventional stuff for my skin. So I just said that to the family. And I said, she's really not liking that medicated wash that she's bathed in. Is there something less chemical that you could use? Is there something that's organic and natural? Maybe try that. Check out with your vet. So you're always keeping yourself clear. So fast forward however many years. And she said to me, the smell, I can't cope with the smell. The smell was literally choking her. And then when I asked her why she wasn't eating, she said she couldn't eat. And she shared the sensation of like a lump in her throat, so she couldn't swallow. So I was like, oh my goodness. So I took all this back to my client. My client was straight down there, despite the time zone. She was down there for the surgery opening the next day, and demanded to see the schedule. And there were no other animals in. They had been in when she was first kept in, but now they're all released. So she was lonely, and it's the harsh chemicals. She wasn't coping with the chemicals. They got the vet to check, and right enough, there's a blockage in this little girl's throat. So this is not me having to go at the vets or the products they use or post-operative care. This is about us really allowing ourselves to not be intimidated by the fact that somebody's a vet. I was intimidated by that for a long time, because I just automatically thought, they're a vet, they're superior to me. They know more than me. So I really saw myself as the poor relation in that relationship for a long time. And that was quite a pivotal moment for me as an animal communicator. And it wasn't against the vet, it's just, this is what I do. And this has its equal place. It's just different. And so, yeah, sometimes we just need to find the words to describe the symptoms. That's where we always hone in on the symptoms. Why can't you swallow? Because there's something there. And I'm just saying, I'm sharing a sensation of something in my throat, like a big lump in my throat, and I can't swallow. And that's why she's not eating. The smell of the chemicals is really impacting her chest. She's finding it hard to breathe, and she feels really lonely. She tells me that there's nobody there. And that's very different from saying you've got a shit vet who lied to you and said that there was animals there and they're not. You don't need to do any of that. You're just sharing factually what you got. They signed a disclaimer because they said they were not leaving her in there, that she was coming home against the vet's advice. And they said, we appreciate that it's against your advice. They got a trolley for her. She was on, I think she was on an oxygen thing. And they got a trolley and the oxygen thing, and they wheeled her out of there on that day. And they brought her, so she had the day with them, and then they brought her back during the day so she could be measured and tested and all that stuff, and then they took her home at night time, so she was never left there at night. So this is where what Diana's saying, it's so true. Where we show up is on the symptoms. We're not trying to be vets. Like, if you want to piss the vet world off, that's how you do it, and that's how you undo decades and decades of people's work before you that have tried so hard to build these relationships and bridges with vets. So just stick to our lane. Stick to our lane, and please take it from me. And I saw Diana nodding her head. I've worked that, like, I'm the poor relation here, the vet's superior to me, and that's not where I am anymore. It's not where I am anymore. So don't take it from me. I've already walked that hard road for you. You're not inferior to the vet. You have a different skill set. And when both these skill sets are brought together, that's a really powerful combination for that animal's well-being.
But with the case you're describing there, that's where it's so important to determine whether that feeling is a purely physical feeling, or whether you've got the emotional feeling that's making your throat feel it's closed, because it would be two completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And this is why when we're doing the body scanning work, we're always wanting to look, is it physical, mental, emotional, or even spiritual? It's not quite so easy to see the spiritual stuff, but I've put it in there because it does come up. Usually comes up when animals have lost faith in people, lost faith in the world, or their guardian has, and they're mirroring that. So that's why that's in there as well. But we really want to be checking, is this physical? Is it mental? Is it emotional? Because as Diana's quite rightly said, that would change the diagnosis and therefore the prescription for that animal.
And do you ever look at a photo of an animal and sort of maybe suddenly see it as sort of so much older than it is, as though you're almost looking at either it in another lifetime?
I feel that rather
really,
than
well, I've seen it as well, and it's really disconcerting because you're not quite sure. I would take it as an indication that there was something coming forward from the past life that was affecting this one, but it can be really disconcerting.
Yep. So, and then the other thing, if anything that the animal sends you is disconcerting or upsetting and you don't like it, you can just say, please take that away and show me it in a different format. You'll remember we have the authority to do that.
It's not that would be on an initial impression of looking at some photographs sometimes. You know, you're looking at a supposedly young animal and that you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. But then that happens, doesn't it? So I tend to feel that rather than see it. But I've had the puppy on the front of my book. So he came back. He died at 7, and he came back, and I was asked to work with him. We didn't know it was him back, and he's a little puppy. And it's the reason that I knew that it was Barney was because of the energy, because I'd worked with Barney so often. And so when I connected with this little fluffy puppy, I could feel the old man, the wise one. I could feel all that energy. And what I actually said to my client was, he doesn't seem to strike me as a puppy. Does he act like a puppy? She said, oh, no. No, he's definitely been. And she was laughing. And she said, he's definitely been here before. And I said, I think it's Barney. And she said, I'm so, like, she was gobsmacked that I'd said that, because she was beginning to wonder that herself. She could feel that same energy. And then she told me the story of the puppy, and the story of her having this puppy was an incredible story all in its own right, where she rescued the puppy, and she just knew as soon as she saw the puppy, not only did she have to rescue the puppy, but she knew that she needed to have him, and it was a little girl's dog. And I said, so you stole a little girl's dog? You took a puppy off a little girl? She said, I had to have him. And then her husband said, we've got 4 dogs. We are not having another dog, and it has to be, because she took the dog home. She threatened the farmer. It was quite a story, because she knew she had to have him. She knew she had to have him, and she said, if you don't let me walk out with this dog right now, I am phoning animal control. There's blood here, and you've got a puppy with a food aggressive adult. he's not been fed, and he had like he was a mess. He was a mess. And so she said, if you don't let me walk out with him right now, I'm phoning RSPCA. So that was the backstory. But the reason she met the puppy was this little girl arrived at our dog training class, and as soon as she saw the puppy, she just thought, oh, I want him. So I was laughing at her saying, you stole a little girl's puppy. But it turned out it wasn't really the little girl's puppy. The little girl used to just visit the farm, and she asked the farmer if she could take the dog to class. Claire was meant to have that dog. That was Barney back. And I could feel that old man. So I often work with young animals, but I can feel that old energy. And sometimes you can work with an animal that is older in chronological years, but they feel like, I often wonder if that's their first time around, because the energy is so frenetic and all over the place and not grounded. And it's like, okay, I wonder if this is their first time around in a physical body. Who knows? But yeah, see it, feel it, sense it, or just know it. It's absolutely possible, regardless of which way it comes in for each of us. And it's hard when you're seeing an old skeleton in a young dog as well. I find that hard when I've seen how the body's not working. Yeah. And you're thinking this is just a young dog. They're meant to have at least another, 10 years, and yet their body doesn't. You can just see by looking at the body that it's not working. It's not working. That can be hard too. Okay, some good contributions there, Diana. Thank you. Sheila, did I see you with your hand up? Or was that an accident?
Yes, thank you, Diana. That brought up, so on the note of sort of metaphorical and symbolic imagery, I'm kind of, there's this rut in my head about how to be true to what we're receiving, as we're supposed to not leave anything out. But I noticed for this one, because every single body part I got, one was spiritual, most of them were emotional, or the rest were emotional. I'm finding it difficult to explain all that and get to the point and be useful, and I guess not tippy tap around.
Do you want to just share what you got, so I've got the real context of what it is, and I'll see if I can help you unpick it?
Sure. So one of the areas was the crown, and this was what felt very spiritual to me. And what I saw was broken shards of purple, and I won't say everything that at some point I got this flash of orange when I asked what would help, and that drew me directly to over emotional. So I guess it was a feeling and a knowing, but feeling like dealing with the emotions would help with this issue, because there's so much energy going down to the dealing with the emotions and the anxiety, that there's some sort of block here. But Guardian emailed me back and said I had 0 comments on that part, because she didn't understand, and there was nothing that she,
she probably couldn't comment on that anyway, because it's what you've gleaned from the animal, and she just might not know it, and that's okay.
And so all I can send, so I emailed back with some explanation, which kind of helped me understand a little bit more as well. But all I've been able to suggest for that, which came up from the animal and myself, is energy work. I'm not professional, but some sort of energy work, and then the issues around the anxiety. But I'm just feeling like it's difficult, with getting frustrated a little bit, because having the imagery and the symbology and the metaphorical things, and sometimes even past life, I feel like it's very difficult for this to feel helpful at all for a very practical or logical guardian.
Okay, so let's trade places. Is that helpful? You up for that? I'll be Sheila and you can be the guardian. Now, I might not have it exactly off pat, because I haven't done the communication, but just going based on what you said, you could say it something like, when I did what was the animal's name?
Frankie.
Frankie. So when I was doing the body scan of Freaky, I was drawn to, or he drew me to the top of the head, and the energy there. It was a visual impression that he sent me, and the image, because you don't want to scare your clients either. That's the other thing. You say it's all broken and shards. So you just say the image that he sent me was that the energy there was a little bit fragmented. So this usually can happen when any of us, people as well as animals, feel a bit disconnected from life or a bit ungrounded. That's how I would say it's not technically true, because you can be overgrounded and not have connection, but just that's too much for most people. So I would just keep it really, really simple. And then I would probably say, do you mind me asking about your sense of connection in the world, and do you have a faith that you follow, or how is that for you? How does that show up for you, if at all, in your day-to-day life? That's probably where I would go, just to rule in or rule out that he's just mirroring back the client's spiritual disconnection. And if that is the case, I would be giving your client the homework. And if they say, oh, I've just lost all hope in life, and you could say, yeah, that's tough. I know that one, been there too. And I really do think that Freaky is just mirroring that back. And this is him being a really beautiful teacher for you, because he's showing you through this body scan what you need to work on. And once you work on that, he won't need to mirror that back to you, and he's going to feel better too. I would recommend that you just spend 5 minutes every day doing some kind of slowed down breath work. Make it easy, 5 minutes, no more than 10, till you find a routine with it. You're just sitting, being, focusing on your breath, and do it in the same room as Freaky if you can, and that will help you both. How did that sound to you as a logical guardian?
Great, but scary, because I feel like these things are, I said something very similar, except about how is your state? I feel like I have no place to be asking those things, even if I feel like, yeah, probably isn't.
So here's my top tip. My top tip for you there. If you feel like you are venturing into their personal territory, just ask permission. Ask permission. They are very unlikely to say no. But if they do, you just don't ask. But you just say, I've got a theory bubbling around in my head, and I don't know how accurate it is or not. So I'd love to ask you a couple of questions about you. Would that be okay? And then I can see if we can work this theory out, or just bin it. They're going to say, yeah, sure, rock on. Then you ask a question. And it either works or it doesn't. So they might say, no, I've got a great daily practice and I do that. And you say, okay, so my theory was off, but we're still left with this image here. So I think some grounding work for Freaky would be really good. And you can just do simple grounding work by stroking him every day and just imagining that all the excess energy from the head is coming down the body and it's been put into the earth. Job done.
I've actually suggested things like that. That helps a lot. Thank you, because that I just felt all the weight lift off my shoulders, give me a little foot in. And I feel like I've suggested things like this a few times, and I feel like it just goes, and that's either a personal error or just not my job, and they're doing what they do with it.
And remember what came up in the accountability call with Christina. You can take a horse to water, you cannot make it drink. You're not responsible for fixing all of this for your client. Your job is to present your client with as much information as you possibly can around the issues that they've asked you to explore. And if you're bringing in helpful suggestions and then they choose not to follow them, you've done your job. It's like taking your child to, here in the UK, we've got Clarks that fit their shoes so they should never get sore feet. So it's like taking your child for their first pair of shoes, you take them to Clark's shoe shop and Clark's fit their shoes, and then you decide to go and buy them from the cheapy shop round the corner where they're mass produced probably by kids in some other frigging country. We can't make them do what we want them to do. Yeah. But what you can do is know, because what I want for all of you is that you can stand, in your authority and stay intact as an animal communicator because you can tick all your boxes that you did everything that you could. She asked me to explore this. Did I do that? Yes. Did I share the symptoms of what was going on there? Yes. Was I able to offer suggestions from the animal? Yes. Or maybe not. If the animal doesn't know, the animal doesn't know. Was I able to offer suggestions? Yes. That's your job done. And I know that sounds a bit cold, but it's like I said in the accountability call with Christina, that first dog, my first ever communication, and I just knew that that stomach issue was the Guardians. And she still had that dog have an autopsy. I was heartbroken. And from that day, hard lesson, painful lesson, it's just like, I can't make people do shit. I can't. People will take an easy route. Most people take the easy, euthanizing that horse. That was the easy route for those people. That was the easy route because they didn't need to deal with it. So we do need to find a way where we can navigate those bumpy client scenarios, because you will come up against them. So you just need to know you've ticked everything off. And when you use the body scan template, you've got the options there to say, you know, Freaky showed me an image of the top of his head, and I saw it like energy. And you can download an image off the internet, or if there's energy images in some of the slides. So just lift it from my slideshow and you would send that to your client and say, I don't know if you know anything about energy, but this is scientifically proven that we all have a moving energy field. And when Freaky showed me his, the energy was a bit fragmented at the top of the body. And this usually can be attributed to a very busy head, and a lack of connection. So some grounding work would really help with him. That okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Something I wanted to say, just that was interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I think Diana, have you been wanting to say something? You unmiked.
No, it was just that you do need to not take things to heart though, because the cat I was working with, who'd showed me he was a tiger and shared lots and lots of stuff. When I wasn't very well, his people had emailed me saying that they were going to put him in the cattery on such a date for a weekend, because they needed to know they got somewhere where they could put him to be able to travel. And I was filled with this is a seriously bad idea and he really doesn't want it. And I conveyed this to the Guardians, but they were all set for what they wanted to do. And yes, he went in for a couple of days. They picked him up and they thought that all was all fine and rosy. And then a few hours later, he'd taken a downhill turn rapidly and ended up in the out of hours, and they'd ended up having to put him to sleep. So they'd not, yeah, it's like, really? But I thought, do you know what? If you're not prepared to compromise on your lifestyle, you really shouldn't get the animal to start with, should you?
Yeah. And that was the point, really, that came up in the accountability call today around Christina and her pain at, you know, the Guardian's attitude and behaviours towards this horse is, you know, just completely dispensable. But we are not responsible for anybody else's behaviour, but we can learn to change how we respond to those painful situations. And for me, it's just been about developing a thick skin. And I don't have a particularly thick skin, I have to say, but it's just about I've learned to let myself off the hook because I can tick the boxes to say that I've done everything that I can possibly do. And I've made suggestions. And that's why when you see in the pain scores video, you know, if a client comes back to you, and it has never happened, It's never happened to me, but it has happened where a client did come back to me and accuse me of being responsible for her cat's painful, lonely death. But as soon as I got my notes out, I was like, no. Oh, I was crying. That was a hard one. I was so I knew before I'd even opened the email. I hadn't heard from that woman. I'd only worked with her cat once. And it was years before, it was 4 years, it was 4 years before. But when I went into emails, her email just jumped out like a neon light and my stomach just went, and I knew exactly, I don't know why I remembered the email address, but I just remembered the email address. But anyway, she wrote me a really quite to the point email saying that I was a fraud, I was a charlatan, I was this, that, I was whatever, and that I was responsible for the painful and lonely death of her cat. Now, she did not say when the cat died, so I didn't know if she had written in grief and the cat just died, 2 weeks ago. So this was a grief-fueled, anger-fueled email, or if the cat died 4 years ago when I did the work, and it had taken her this long to build up the courage to speak her version of the truth. So I got the notes out, and this is why I said to you, I'll do the character likes and dislikes. So we did the character, because she said, and there was nothing that you said to me that could not have been said about any other cat. That was why she called me a fraud. So when I got the notes out, I was able to see that I ticked off the character likes and dislikes section, and that she had agreed that was her cat, and there was specific information in there. So like, I now know that's not true what she said. And then I carried on reading, and what I'd actually written was, because her cat she said, my cat wanted to be in the bedroom beside me, and you didn't tell me that, and my cat died a lonely death outside the bedroom, and all they wanted was comfort and support from me. So when I read the notes, I actually had in there, your cat wants to be in the bedroom beside you, he misses you at night, and he's lonely, shut out of the bedroom. And she said to me, because I'd written her response in, I always use a different colour pen. So in red pen, I'd written in her response and put it into quotations. And her response to me was, well, when he's in the bedroom, he fights with the other cat and I don't get any sleep. So that's not happening.
Yeah.
So I was able to, and that didn't stop it being painful, because I still had to deal with it. Lighter, and I had to process my own triggers. I mean, she said some really horrible stuff about me, and they triggered me, like they were my big triggers. So this is where we can only do what we can do, and this is where, when you're feeding back to your client, you're just as honest as you can be about what comes through. And I don't think it's a bad thing to take a little note if the client has gone against you or you against your recommendation. Just that, it's that future proofing you kind of piece. And I don't want anybody to get scared about that. Like that's happened to me once, and it wasn't true what she had written. It just wasn't true, but it was true for her. And so I dealt with it sensitively and whatever. But when it comes to things like pain scores, if it's a 6 out of 10, you're recommending that they go and get veterinary care.
Yeah.
But they might choose not to. But as long as you've done it, you can tick that box.
Yeah.
So everything in that body scanning template is set up to help you share all the different ways the information might come in, and for it to be explicitly clear for your client what they need to do, or what the animal's experiencing, what the symptoms are, and if there's anything that helps it, anything that triggers it, and then what the pain score is. And it says at the very bottom in red, any scores above 5 out of 10, I recommend that you get followed up with a vet or other health professional. And then that's, you tick your box. Whether they do it or not, you can't make them. But if they ever come back to you and say, you worked with my horse last year and she's absolutely crippled, I've seen the x-rays, and you're panicking and you get your notes out and you're like, oh, yeah, she told me she was a 6 out of 10 for pain, and I recommended that you took her to the vet straight away. Did you do that? Put it back on them. You're not the scapegoat for somebody else's guilt. And I think that's what happened with my client. He was feeling guilty. And so who else to blame but the animal communicator? So everything that I teach you is really to just support you in staying in your lane, because that's where you shine best, and just making sure you've ticked all your boxes for your client, and then the rest is up to them. And it's like, I can't remember the expression you used, Diana, but I can't remember what words you used, but my take on the words that you use is we just need to find that way to just let that go. But if you're not going to do what you suggested or what the animal suggested. Thinking of a behavioural case a few years ago, it wasn't mine, it was somebody in my Facebook group. She wasn't shooting on the programme, but I was doing an event, so it got brought up during the event, and she said, what would you do if the guardian has said that there's this big problem with the behaviour? You've spoke to the dog said he needs A, B, C, the guardian's not doing it, and they're coming back to you. It's like, you put it back on them. You put it back on them. And this is where I think scaling is really powerful. So I would say to the guardian, like, how big is this problem? And you've approached me, he was tearing up the skirting boards, he was putting holes indoors. Like, how big a problem is that out of 10? They're going to say 8, 9, 10, 100 out of 10. Like, they're so stressed. They're going to give that a really high score. And then you just come in without any judgment and you just say, I'm really surprised. Because when I worked with him, he said he needed this, this, and this. And you've got this 10 out of 10 stressful problem in your life, but he's given you 3 suggestions for how to stop that. And you've not put them in place. Is there anything I can do to help you get those strategies in place for your boy? Back to the guardian. Back to the guardian. And it's similar to what Diana said about, if people aren't going to work around their lifestyle for their animals, they probably shouldn't have animals. But this is where we often do end up doing this work, because the animal's in an environment that doesn't really support or serve them. And that can end up as a behavioural issue, but it can also end up as a health issue because they're not coping with it. So it becomes a mental health issue, which can then become a physical health issue. Stress. We know it from humans. Like, stress is biggie.
And homeopathically, that's an obstacle to cure.
Yes. Yeah. It has to be cured, or they can't move forward, can they? So just remember, if you're following my teachings, you're doing everything that you can to stay in your lane as an animal communicator and to support your guardian as much as you possibly can. The rest is up to them. And it is just developing that. I'm not saying it doesn't ever not hurt, but it doesn't hurt so deeply. The more you see it, and the more you know that you've ticked your boxes. And this is where you will see a difference between your case studies and paying clients. People that pay you to work with their animals are more likely to want to meet you in the middle, because they have they've literally invested in their animal's well-being. So you may see a difference. I would expect you to see a difference if you do have case studies that are a bit on that kind of tricky side. There's less of that in the paying world, because people are already invested. They want to help. They want you to help. Right, we have our Connect and Communicate class in a minute, and I need to find the picture. I went to get it when I was waiting for you to come into this class. It should be in my picture folder, and it's not. So if you need to go grab a toilet break, get a drink, I'll see you literally in a couple of minutes back here for Connect and Communicate. You all did amazing today. It really helped everybody. And all the best with your health case studies. And for those of you that aren't there yet, when you come to it. Okay, see you in the next class. Bye.